Welcome to the C Intellect Power Research and Analysis Topic Review. I'm Will McCauley here with our founder, Mike Reed. Mike, a big topic that we've been hearing recently is cryptocurrency demand and its potential impact on power demand in the United States and globally. You're seeing some pretty draconian estimates from people as to what the demand is going to be. So can you walk us through kind of what cryptocurrency really is, what they're talking about, and what the true potential is for power usage both in the United States and globally?
Yeah. Well, I think the market is giving way to hype and actually hysteria about what demand will be, and I think it's not really understood. I'm going to try to walk you through what I think the numbers actually are. I think the first point is if I look at U.S. demand this year, it's going to come in about 700 megawatts. I think U.S. demand in 3 years is going to come in at about 1,700 megawatts. So that's going to be the order of magnitude for the U.S. If I switch to the world, I think the world demand this year is about 7,700 megawatts. I think in 3 years, the world demand will be about 18,000 megawatts. And so what I want to do is kind of walk you through what it is and where these numbers came from. In terms of sources of data in this space, it's pretty scarce, it's pretty hard to come by. I think there's actually a lot of false information out there. I think there's probably three pretty reliable sources. The first is the University of Cambridge. They've got a Judge Business School, did a very well-documented, well-thought-out cryptocurrency review. It is dated from 2017 with research largely dated to 2016. The second is there's a website called gigaeconomist.net. Pretty well thought of. They go through a calculation to tell you that the demand is X versus Y. The third, and I think actually the most important source of research, was actually just published 1 week ago by an author of Alex DeVries. And it's the first research piece in this paper that was peer reviewed. And in his process, he used 3 different methodologies to triangulate where we're at today on power demand. Let me talk a little bit about blockchain mining or miners in terms of what it is. A blockchain miner actually gets paid to maintain the infrastructure. And what is the infrastructure? It's really 4 components. He gets paid for the use of his computer. He gets paid for the power that his computer is consuming. He gets paid for cooling that computer. And then lastly, he gets paid for the infrastructure of the building that it's in. So he is providing a service to support the network, and he's getting paid in coins. Now, yes, we're talking about cryptocurrency today, of which Bitcoin is a major cryptocurrency, but there are other cryptocurrencies out there. I want to lift it up to a broader discussion. It's just blockchain in general. So all blockchain technologies are going to have an enormous power demand as of today. So we're really talking about blockchains as a whole. Yes, a big subset of that's Bitcoin, which is a subset of cryptocurrency. There's another path that's emerging shortly, and that's this whole transaction audit train. Blockchain is ideal for documenting the entire transaction of anything, and I see widespread use of that that's already emerging now. I think it'll be big time in 3 years. With that, I want to turn it back over to Will to talk a little bit about the machines and the location of those machines.
Thank you, Mike. That's really valuable information. As you can see on the slide here, this is a typical crypto data mining rig that you see in front of them. Specifically, this is a Bitmain Antminer S9. You can see there's 18 of them in the rack here. You can get them on Amazon for $1,800. So we're looking at $20,000 plus of just hardware required to scale this type of algorithms and calculations required to do this. Ultimately, it's a big processor with a significant fan on the back because these things generate a lot of heat and require strong cooling apparatus to not overheat and work. Next, if you sort of think about a crypto miner as a whole, there are sort of 4 key aspects that you need to successfully mine cryptocurrencies. Computers is obviously one that we've already talked about. Low-cost electricity, it is a significant impact that a lot of people potentially overlook. Obviously, fast internet speeds and reliable internet speeds are very important. Another one that I mentioned previously is cooling. So cooler climates in general have less power cost and therefore less cooling costs associated with the mining production. And then the final is inexpensive real estate, because these things take up a lot of room, and if your rent costs are astronomical, it doesn't necessarily make sense. Here, there's a study from the University of Cambridge in London that Mike referenced previously, showing which countries around the world really have have strategic advantages for these characteristics that I talk about. As you can see, most of them are in the northern part of the northern hemisphere, but there are certain countries that generate a lot that may not check all of the boxes, but that still succeed in mining a decent amount of cryptocurrencies, Venezuela being the obvious one that stands out, and that's because they have very, very cheap electricity costs that other countries don't necessarily have. I'm going to hand back over to Mike to talk about a little bit the demand that we've seen to date, what potential demand looks like, and really what limiting factors there are for those demand aspects.
Thank you, Will. If I take the three sources that were discussed earlier and I kind of put them together in a defendable position, I end up with a table on the left. In the table on the left, you look at the bottom axis, it's showing about 462 megawatts of demand two years ago, 2016, 2550, 2017, and the 2664 in 2018. I think this chart is actually very reasonably accurate for total world demand. And where it breaks down is when we disaggregate that demand by country. I think this is a reasonable approximation by country, but I think the point is it's more accurate on total world demand, less accurate when we look at individual countries, but I still think it's a reasonable approximation. Now, when you take those 3 years of total world demand, we end up with a compounded annual growth rate of about 155%. When I put that growth rate against the US and against the world, you end up with the chart on the right, and you see some astronomical power demand numbers. This is where the hype and hysteria is coming in. At the current rate of growth, are we going to wake up in that world in 3 years all the way out to 2030? And I'm going to make the argument, no, we're not going to end up in that world. I want to close out with really 3 reasons why we're not going to end up in that world. So the first is price. So if you have a high cryptocurrency, Bitcoin price, if you have a high cryptocurrency price, you're going to incentivize an awful lot of data mining to take place. A lower price will disincentivize it because you can't cover your cost structure, computer, electricity, cooling, real estate. The second is the pay structure associated with cryptocurrency. So the system actually started where the pay is halved every 4 years going forward. So as the pay structure for how many coins you get to provide the infrastructure support services decreases, you're going to have less incentive to do it. The third is probably the biggest of all 3, and that is the algorithm that's currently used is pretty robust, but it's obviously power intensive. There's already been a lot of work taking place on actually changing the algorithm to reduce its power demand sensitivity, but at the same time maintaining the security and the encryption that it offers. I really think the algorithm is going to be the key to avoid these astronomical power demand numbers as we go forward. Will?
Thank you, Mike. That's really valuable information. If I sort of summarize your points, blockchain, cryptocurrency, here to stay, has valuable applications outside of the cryptocurrency markets today. So there is going to be demand and utilization, but there are also structural reasons why current forecasts
Absolutely.
Are not necessarily to be fully believed.
Absolutely.
Thank you everyone for visiting with us. If you find this research topic and other topics valuable, please visit our website, cintellect.com, for the full fundamentals report. Thank you.